Welcome back. You're listening to Get Real, and I'm your host, Bob Gallagher. Joining me in studio today are Aaron Thomason and Mike McCormick. Welcome back to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. And we also have Dr. Percuoco here with us. Welcome to the show, Doctor.
Well, thank you very much.
Can you give us a little bit of background on what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. First, I want to say hi to Aaron and Mike and you, Bob, because you guys have been very gracious to have me on today. So what do I do? Well, that's a loaded question, right? Well, number one is I've been a board-certified chiropractic neurologist for the past 30 years. So I've been in clinical practice for 30 years. I've also taught neurology all over the world to doctors, especially in Europe. Spent a lot of time with applications in clinical neurology, teaching doctors how to take care of their patients from methodology that may not be the most mainstream, meaning that we find ways of treating patients with things that are non-pharmacological, non-medication effects. I'm also an inspirational speaker, and I use that term inspirational speaker because I'm not a motivational speaker, so to speak. I can't motivate that which can't be motivated, but I could inspire somebody to be better and to think differently, and that's what really makes me go. I'm also a vlogger. I'm a podcaster, I'm a life coach, I'm a husband, and a dad to 2 kids. And there you go. In a nutshell. There's a mouthful right there.
Absolutely. So can you kind of, you talked about being an inspirational speaker. Can you kind of tell us what that's all about, what you do?
Sure, absolutely. One thing that I've noticed, this is kind of like my message in life. I want people to know that at any time, at any point in their life, when they want to change, they can. A lot of people don't think that they can. They need to be inspired to get there. So, in my practice for years, I would look at patients that had physical concomitants. There was something wrong. They had back pain, they had a headache, they just had a stroke, they're dealing with digestive issues. And I had to figure out what's wrong with the tissue. I'm like, okay. So I do my exam as a chiropractor and I come up with the best possible solution that I can make. But some of the times I just couldn't crack the case. And I began to think about what is it that I could investigate that would get me closer to the truth. And of course, that was the brain. Right. Then when I began studying neurology, I understood why no one studies this stuff. It's really difficult to understand the structure of the brain and then, God forbid, how it all works together. But I want you guys to know this, is that when you look at the body, like I look at the pupils and I'll see a large pupil or a small pupil. I'll see sweating on one side of the body. Muscle tone is different on one side. The arm doesn't swing when they walk. The digestive system's off. Their skin is filled with psoriasis and eczema. You're like, what is going on with these people? So I kept looking at the tissue, but I wasn't getting the answer. So I went to the brain and I started looking at brain through all kinds of cool stuff. If you're a doctor out there, I do video nystagmography and oculomotor studies. I basically look at the eyes and see what they tell us about the brain. They're connected to it. So it's kind of cool. I like that. But when I began looking at the brain, I was able to crack a lot of cases. I could see why a person was suffering from a migraine condition because the brain was struggling to control the parameters that increased the blood supply. I'm like, okay. So I spent 10 years doing this, and it was really exciting. I felt like I was on the cutting edge of something really cool, looking at brain and how it controls the body. So over time, though, I began to see a pattern of things. I'm like, what's going on with all these people? They all seem to be chronic. They weren't coming in with acute injuries, right? They weren't playing. I mean, there are plenty of people that go to a chiropractic office that golf or they're a runner and they hurt something. I get that. But I'm talking about the person that might be sitting in our podcast right now, like Mike or Aaron or Bob or Pete. Something's not working good. We're off. So our body's breaking down a bit. And I started to realize that if they're chronic conditions, then it must be from something that's chronically driving them. And I started to think about it. What chronically drives people? The way they think.
Nice.
That was it. It was the way they think.
Yeah.
And then I started taking up a lot of investigation in new patients that were coming in, and I began to ask the questions about their past and their background and the traumas that they've been through. And what I found is that you can have stress. The big thing that makes people sick, 93% of people that go to a doctor go to that doctor because they have some sort of stress in their lives. That's what's pushed them there. I don't care if it's an arrhythmia, cancer, Alzheimer's, or back pain. They're all fit under that category. So while you're out there and you're struggling, you're dealing with the day-to-day minutia of stress. It's time, getting to work, taking care of the kids, paying the bills. These are really difficult things for a lot of people. What does that do? It causes their brain to get a little overloaded, so to speak. But wait a minute. Let's bring it back a decade or 2 decades, depending how long you've lived, to come to find out that you've had other traumas in your past. They're emotional traumas. Those traumas could be sexual in nature, unfortunately. Some people go through that. They're also abusive from a physical perspective, but probably one of the worst of all is the verbal abuse that people take day in and day out. They're conditioned. So what's happened, many people's brains have been conditioned to be a mess.
Right.
They overthink everything. They're living in the past, so they feel awful. Now, with that, here's the goose with the golden egg. There's a study today we know as epigenetics. And epigenetics is incredibly powerful. It means this, that I'm a Percuoco. That's my last name. So mom and dad made me. So they both gave me a strip of DNA. And now when you look at Peter, you go, he must be a Percuoco. He's got the jawline, the hairline, the height. Everything is pretty much Percuoco. That's the hardwiring of our genes. Yay, that's cool. But you got to check this one out, because when I first started studying this blew me off the map. That when you think, whatever you're thinking about, it releases chemicals in the brain. They're neurotransmitters. So these neurotransmitters activate hormones, which are then affecting your body. So let's say that Erin's oldest or youngest just vomited all over the new carpet. And she's like, what? This is stressing me out. So while she's stressed out, she's dumping this stress chemistry into the bloodstream, and it's going down into her entire body, and it's activating certain things because she wants to throw up. She just spent $4,000 on this carpet.
Next time, do hardwood, Erin. I mean, come on, you have a 1-year-old.
That's right. Have a glass of wine and throw it up and join your child, whatever you have to do. So what happens for people is that when their brain becomes super active in a negative state, it releases negative chemistry into the bloodstream. Then the chemistry actually envelops all of your cells. And by the way, Mike, how many cells are in the body? 50 trillion or 50 trillion?
I would go with 50 trillion.
Damn, I knew you'd get it. Smart guy. There's 50 trillion cells, and we're just a collection of all those. So the cells have something in the middle that produces protein, and that's called the nucleus with the DNA in it. So every part of our body is made of proteins. Your bones, your teeth, your blood cells, your organs, all this stuff is made of protein. And you're recreating proteins in the cells every day to keep the cells healthy. But what happens if you spill a bunch of brain chemistry into the bloodstream that is very negative? It's going to envelop the cells, and you're going to produce proteins that are controlling your body, which are in complete reaction to the way you feel emotionally. Holy moly. Then you look at people and you go, look at their physiology. The minute I look at the physiology, that's when I look back at the brain and say, you think in a negative state consistently, then your physical body will change because the DNA is going to produce proteins, which are going to be in reaction to what you're thinking, which means you're not healthy. Let me make it simple. You ever go out and just have yourself a couple of shots of tequila with the boys from college on an empty stomach? Not you, Bob, but maybe Mike and probably Erin. The alcohol gets into the bloodstream, encapsulates the cells, and then tells the DNA, hey, make crappy proteins. And it does. And what do you wake up with? A hangover. You're like, oh, what happens if you went for a nice run in the sunshine, drank a lot of water, and ate broccoli? All those chemicals and all that action is in the bloodstream. It encapsulates the body. It changes the way the body moves. And if the body heals, then the mind heals with it. It's a complete system. It's a system of wellness. Pretty cool, huh?
All of it except for the broccoli was cool.
The superfood broccoli. So I got to tell you this one thing. I had this wonderful patient. Her name is Marie. She's in her 40s. And she's been to a lot of doctors in the past. And she struggled with vertigo, which is dizziness. And she's had it for 7 years. Cannot drive a car for 7 years. She has she has young children, and she has to be able to get up and go. But she can't get up and go because she can't drive because she's dizzy all the time. So I sit and I chat with her. It's an hour of time that I booked for her, but I only sat with her for, or should I say, examined her in 10 minutes because I have skills there. But I just talked to her. And what did I find out? I kept thinking after the neurological examination, I said, her eyes, when she looks to the left, cause her to become hugely anxious and dizzy. What? What is that? Now, I'm not going to tell you the whole neurological concomitant of this, but I understood it. So I knew that it was emotional. It had to be for the region of the brain that I was dealing with. So I said to her, what's up with your past? She's like, what do you mean? And I said, have you been abused? And then she stopped. There's always the pause. There's that pause. And I'm like, you have been. She goes, I have. Sexually or physically? She said, both. Once, twice? She goes, 3 times. What other major traumas have you had? I lost my father 3 years ago. He was my rock. He was my warrior. He was the man that protected me my whole life. I'm lost. I said, okay. As a consequence of those traumas, you're activating specific dopamine centers in your brainstem. And I'm going to teach you how to protect yourself from doing that. And then we're going to bring awareness to what's happened in your past so that you can now deal and cope with the things that are happening. It took 2 weeks. Vertigo's gone.
Wow.
I was like, wow.
After 7 years.
After 7 years. So I didn't need to give her meclizine or some drug, which is okay. I mean, there are certain methodologies, but I don't live by that methodology. I'm like, there is something going wrong in this soul, and I want to find out what it is. So therefore, if you're sitting at home listening to this, don't ever forget that you can become amazing in 5 seconds if you want to. It's about choice and decision. And decision is to cut off from all other possibilities. Make a decision to maybe go onto my website and develop a relationship with me so that you can find out where we're at, where you're at, and how you can start investing in making yourself better. And here's the thing, it doesn't even cost anything. Although I shouldn't say that. It costs time and consistency. If you want to change your brain, you need to do it consistently day after day after day. And even in the middle of the day, you have to catch yourself when you're in your old patterns. Right. And these are the things that I teach. And I want to teach as many people as possible to get control of their lives so that they can have wonderful lives, wonderful families. And in the future, they have grandchildren. Life just gets to be that much better. Mm-hmm. Holy crap, is that a lot of wind or what?
Yeah, it's a lot of good stuff.
It's a lot of good stuff.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you only deal with adults?
I do not. If you have a heart that's beating in your chest, I certainly take care of children from my chiropractic business for sure. Mm-hmm. But I want to caution you, and maybe this is part of the question. I do see people that come in for life coaching from me because they know that they can learn so much. But if those particular people, especially children, are really struggling and they need serious medical attention because their health could be they could be suicidal, let's put it that way. I make sure that I move them quickly to McLean Hospital or somewhere else. But if I had a 16-year-old, I actually do have a bunch of 16-year-old kids right now that are coming in, and they don't know much about life. So I teach them the simple principles, and we start a process. Because can you change the brain? Erin, what do you think? Can you change the brain?
Yes.
Okay. So the brain will change by stimulation, right? So one of the reasons that people live in a negative state is because they've been taught by an event that happened in their life, and then they colorized it. They put too much weight on it. They went to work and they said, do you believe this happened to me? That guy's a loser. Okay. Then your buddy says, yeah, I know him. He is a loser. And then someone else comes in and says, who are you talking about? I'm talking about this guy. Oh, he's a loser. Now you're running the same process over and over and over, and your brain is like becoming one with this. But so is your body through epigenetics. And before you know it, you're a mess, and you're blaming everybody for your own problem when you actually created it yourself. And you just didn't realize you were doing it. But I'll guarantee you, I shouldn't guarantee, I hate that word, but I will tell you that in my personal and professional experience, when you see people who want to change, they do. They just get there someday and they wake up and they say, I have to make a change. I am definitely going to be stuck in the same mold. It's Groundhog Day. I said that off the mic today. It's Groundhog Day, fellas. We will live the same thing day after day after day after day, and we learned it before we were even 6.
Right. But you have to take personal responsibility and get away from the victim mentality that we see so much today.
Oh, Bob, you could not have said that any better. Victim mentality is being propagated on television and through the media, and that's one of the that's the easiest way to get your diet of garbage.
Right.
You turn it off. You go outside. Listen, humans are made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. That's what makes us organic. So where does that come from? Well, a tree is made of the same thing. So are the bass in the reservoir uptown. I walked the other day. Get outside. Break the cycle. And you have to constantly do something that would help you. And I said off camera today, and I'm going to say it again right now for our audience at home. All you have to do is smile. So right now, all 4 of us, and we're going to go silent for like 1-2 seconds. We're all going to smile. Ready? 1, 2, 3, smile. Right? And now in this silly ass smile that we're doing, right? All 3 of us have changed our posture.
4.
We've kind of
4.
3 of you. 4.
Erin wasn't smiling as big as everybody else, but still.
She's still itching from my earlier comments, right?
Yeah. She's really upset about that new carpet.
That's it.
That's true.
So we have this thing which we call neuroplasticity. The brain will change its circuitry based on whatever you focus on. So if you focus on the wrong stuff for too long, and that's a lifetime, because a lot of the people that I see are over 30, they've been doing this for so long, they don't even know they're in the middle of it. It's like an alcoholic that says, I don't drink that much. 3 beers a night, whoopee. Yeah, but I've done it for 10 years. Add up the amount of alcohol you drank, and they go, what? Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I am an alcoholic. And it's at that moment that they took personal responsibility for who they are in their life, and they said, it ain't over until I win. And I'm going to win by changing the brain that's inside this head. And to do it, I just simply have to smile, number one. And then you get involved with something like whether it's me or somebody else that's teaching you about who you are and what you can become by changing the way you think, will then change the epigenetic proteins in the body, and then you shift. And then you become happy, and it becomes a habit. And if you develop a habit, you'll develop what we know today as an attitude, which then turns into a temperament. Mike has the most incredible temperament. I know I wouldn't pump him up again, but I'm going to do it again. When he walks into a room, he brings his temperament with him. It's a good attitude based on good processing and the way he wants to see the world. Those type of people make a big difference.
Yes, they do.
Absolutely.
Which is why most people want to be around people who have good attitudes.
Absolutely. Because it's infectious. It really is. And the smile is infectious. I don't know if you've ever heard of mirrored neurons, but you have them, I have them, we all have them. So when I look at you, Bob, and we're communicating, when I look into your eyes and I speak to you, I am now mirroring everything about you, and you're mirroring me in those neurons. We're connected. And if we're not, I got to move over and look at one of the other two people sitting here because there's no connection there.
Right.
It's like, wow, we can learn as humans to connect by mirroring our brains together. And if you hang out with the right people, then you're going to get the right response. You're the sum of the 5 closest people to you. Our friend Joe DiStefano out there in California, he just said that on my podcast, and I believe him.
Yeah.
We are the sum of our own behaviors, of the 5 closest people to us. So you might as well hang out with the eagles rather than the pigeons.
That's right. That's right.
And that's how she rumbles.
Yeah. So I want to give out some contact info for you. So you're just going to direct anybody that wants more information about you to your website?
Correct.
And that is drpercuoco.com.
Yep.
And I'm going to spell it, obviously the DR for doctor, Percuoco. So drpercuoco.com. And what can they find on the website?
So on my website is, number one is my podcast. So I have, my podcast is called the Daily Inspirational Podcast. And if you go there and you find it, you can certainly listen to it on my website. But all of the podcast directories are listed that I'm connected to. So you could just click on one if you're an Android user, Google or Apple or Stitcher or Spotify, whatever you use. Just click on it. And if you're that kind of podcaster, then you get the thing anytime you want. It's meant to be an inspirational podcast that gives you a little bit about what grandma told you and a little bit about the clinical neurologist told you. Let's wiggle it together. Science and the good connections between family. On top of that, I do a lot of life coaching. So I life coach. I built a studio, my own studio at home. So I have people come into my studio and then invest their lives in learning about themselves. That's my life coaching business, and you can find that online. You can also find all my vlogs, as I have 120 different vlogs on different subjects, which are free for you to watch and peruse. There's some written blogs and a whole bunch of other stuff. And my ability to speak in public, speak on the main stage across America, you'll see that performance in there as well. Excellent. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop where everything comes together. So in those moments, you're not going to 5 or 6 different websites. Nice and easy.
Turn off the news and all the negativity and do something that's going to make you feel better.
That couldn't be any better said, Bob.
Excellent.
You got it.
I want to thank you for coming and doing the show with us today. Lots of great info.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.
Excellent. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with more Get Real after this.